All right, guys, can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me now? Everything is good? Let me know if you guys got a mic check on there. All right, I'd say I got some good questions, and you guys got some questions in here. You guys are studying my Security Plus, my A Plus. It's all good. You guys should be able to hear me, yeah? I hope so. Yep. Can you guys? All right, you guys can hear me, guys. Let's go ahead and get started. So you guys are good, right? You guys can hear me good. You guys can see me well. Sounds good. All right. That's what we need. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. And I think most of you guys probably have me as an instructor. You probably take classes with me. If not, my name is Andrew Ramdial, and I'm one of the instructors here at TIA. And I teach a lot of the different types of classes that we have, the A plus, the Net plus, the Security plus, but I mostly teach pen testing classes. That's my quote unquote specialty there, is mostly pen testing stuff, CEH, and a variety of corporate classes. So welcome to this live stream. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be answering all of you guys' questions that you guys may have pertaining to these three certifications, the A plus, the Net plus, and the Security plus. And I've gotten a lot of questions from our students here, my students on the internet and stuff like that, our e-learning courses and stuff. So instead of just giving everyone an email reply, I said, you know what? I made a PowerPoint presentation really quick with all 15 good questions that would seem repetitive. People kept asking me the same questions. So I said, you know what, let me just do a stream. Let me just get out and answer everyone's question. And then everybody in the world can attend it and get something out of it. And also, any questions that you guys have pertaining to these certifications, jobs, how do we find our first jobs in IT is one of the questions. I'm going to make sure I get it answered for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is let's start out by asking, I'm going to ask you guys, does anybody have any particular questions that they would like to ask me? Because I have a bunch of them I'm going to be going over with you. Does anybody have any particular questions about these particular certifications that you guys would like to ask me about? Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask me? All right, I do see you on the chat here. I do see on the chat that we have some questions already. Somebody says here, hey, I like your Security Plus course. Love the idea of the hands-on. Would have been nice to have is an 11-hour type small book PDF with the course. Yeah, I really wanted to add it in. I may just write. I'm not sure if you guys know, but I write books also. I am a best-selling author for project management study guides. I may write a Security Plus book, maybe coming up towards the end of the year. So that may happen. I'm not too sure if I want to get into that yet, but I may do that. But you know what? When I'm doing the course, try to take notes as I go through the class. Try to take as many notes as you could, and you can then go through the exam objectives also. All right. Somebody says, are you still taking your A? Okay, so you guys are working on your A plus. All right, so somebody here says, I'm working on my A plus, and you have taken it 5 times. Wow. 5 times is quite a lot. to take an exam. So what you need is a whole different approach, I would suggest. You know, I have a question coming up later, Daniel. So Daniel is asking me this question. I have a question coming up later that where people say, oh, I haven't passed the exam. What can I do? So I'll answer that more in depth coming up a little bit later. Don't memorize it, learn it. Yeah, you guys, you know, the thing with security certifications is there is a lot to memorize. You got to know port numbers. You have to know, especially IP addressing, a lot of that stuff you just have to memorize. So there's quite a lot to memorize. And what you have to do is you have to keep doing it. You have to keep repeating it over and over in order for you to do it. All right, what else more do we have here? You're struggling with Network Plus. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about Network Plus. So I'm not sure if you guys started studying your Network Plus or how many of you guys started studying it. You know, what I recommend to all my students and why I try to make my classes a little different is when you're studying for things like Network Plus, you're studying for A Plus, Security Plus, and so on, what you guys should do is try to practice as much as possible. Just don't pick up the book and go through it. If you're reading a study guide, just don't go through the study guide. If you're watching some videos, just don't watch the video. Try to see, is there lab associated with these particular courses that you can try? Whether it's, even if it's just configuring an IP address and setting up virtual machines and pinging each other, you know, that's a simple lab that you guys can try, but it'll give you that good hands-on. It'll make things a lot easier. The problem with Network Plus is that it is very, very terms focused. It's very terminology focused. A lot of what you learn in Net Plus, you really can't see it. Like you can't see the OSI model in practice, right? The OSI just shows you how data transfers across the network. You actually can't touch it and feel it. So it does make it a little complex to actually do that. Okay, this guy says, thanks to the great subnetting class. Yeah, I've been teaching subnetting and IP addresses for a long time. Glad you enjoyed it. Here's a very good question. Dolphin is asking me here, what do you see people struggle with the most with A+? So that is an excellent question. You know, what do I see that people struggle the most with when it comes to A+? So the A+ certification, I think people struggle a lot with is memorizing and the sheer amount of information that's get to them. So you see, in my mind, and this is going to sound weird to some of you guys, in my mind, the A+ certification was one of the hardest certification that I have ever taken. Does that sound crazy? I have 62 certifications right now. I've taken over 100 certification exams. And I considered A+ to be one of the hardest certification that I took. And you guys, now that may sound crazy, but I'll tell you why. It's because it was my first certification. When I started 21 years ago, when I took A+, it was the first certification that I would have taken. And I actually failed the second part of A+. It was hardware and software then, and I actually failed that. So because it was the first time I was taking a certification exam, and I wasn't too familiar with the process, I didn't know how much I had to study. And when you get into studying like something like A+ or getting into IT for the first time, everything is confusing, everything seems overwhelming. And you know what? I didn't put in enough study time, didn't pass it on the first try. And this is for any of you that might not pass an exam. You know what? If you don't pass it, you just got to keep going, try a different approach. You know what people struggle the most with? The entire certification. I think that's one of the hardest, just to get over that bump. Because once you get A+, you get into the groove of how to study. I think people just have a hard time changing their life activities in order to accommodate studying for a certification exam. Now, after taking so many exams, I don't find it that difficult anymore to just go and study for an exam. I've just done it so many times. But when it comes to topic-wise, some of the hardest topics that I've seen in A+ are going to be memorizing port numbers, memorizing the actual physical look of a port. Like, oh, this is an HDMI port. This is a display port. And those two always confuse me. Knowing the look of all the different USB ports. Sometimes that confuses me also. Is that a C port? Is that a mini port? Is that a micro port? And so on. So I think those are some of the hardest things there in A+. And then some of those Windows utility, knowing what they are. I think some of those are some of the complex topics that people will have. Somebody else asked me a question. When is my next Network Plus class? You guys got to look online, check the website for that. Okay, Daniel says, what ports will we actually use? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Daniel. Are you talking logical ports such as HTTP, HTTPS, like port 80, port 443? Are you talking physical ports on the back of your machine? Like an HDMI or DVI port? That I'm not too sure what that question is. All right. Now, okay, somebody says here, the performance-based question. Can we have some tips on the performance-based question for the Network Plus exam? So on the Network Plus, the performance-based questions are going to be where you have to configure. You might have to run some commands. So you have to make sure you know your IP addressing commands. You may get questions on identifying and knowing how to secure or how to set up like a wireless network where you have to go in and change wireless configuration. The thing with the simulators that CompTIA has that does that is that it's not like a normal router. It's nothing like you've ever seen. It's something that they basically created themselves. So it's not like a commercial thing you can get. The best thing I can do is to tell you to go about and find, just look at your own router that you have at home and see how to configure a wireless setting on it, because it's that's one of the performance-based questions that they're going to ask you on that. All right, somebody says, if I get all 3 certs, will I be able to get an entry-level job with no experience? Yes. Rogers is asking me, if I get all 3 certs, will I get an entry-level job? If you can get all 3 certs, I know quite a lot of companies are hiring people, especially for remote technicians, because of the whole work from home thing that we have going on. So yes, you should be able to. I don't see why not. Okay, and I got another question here. How can we? Oh, somebody's asking me, how can we leverage those certifications to get a job outside of Geek Squad? You know what? You guys have to apply. You know, one of the things that, now I don't want to get too much into this because this is a pretty big topic. One of the questions that I get quite a lot, or problem I see quite a lot is, and people ask me, oh, Andrew, how do I get a job? And then I say, well, let me see your resume. And then I see the resume of these folks, and then what I find to see they have on there is the resume is not up to date. They may just they don't put the knowledge that they have. So when you guys are applying for different jobs, for example, and you've never had an IT job already, what you should be doing is to make sure that you update your resume and put your skills on it. So sometimes I see a resume that says, oh, here is, I've been working as a customer service rep for this thing. I have A+ Net Plus Secure, but you don't put any of your skills on it. Put what you're good at. Put that, you know what, I know how to repair a computer. You can put a section in your resume called skills and put installing Windows, troubleshooting operating systems, setting up basic networking, understanding basic security concepts, things you would learn in your actual certifications itself. All right. Good question on that. All right. So Brenda says, recent research shows that most companies are replacing computers instead of repairing them. That is correct. So that the most we can do is help desk. Do I agree? I do agree with the fact that they are replacing physical hardware instead of repairing hardware. I think there's going to be a lot less jobs for hardware technicians. If all you know how to do is put RAM in a computer, I don't think it's very useful, right? You need to know more than that. You need to know, because a lot of the jobs today are going to be fixing software, which your A plus does cover. So it's going to be like, do you know how to troubleshoot Windows? If there's a problem in Windows, do you know how to fix that error that just popped up? If a person have a problem with printers, can you fix that? If a problem has connecting to the network, can you fix that? That's where you need to do. So yes, Brenda, I do agree that we are moving away from hardware, like just fixing hardware, especially in corporate America. And we are going to be going more towards software fixing, because everything is a software now. And not to mention, if everything goes into the cloud itself, then there's no real hardware to fix, right? Because then the cloud providers like AWS becomes responsible for fixing the hardware itself. All right, very good, guys. Some good questions. Does anybody have any other question? Okay, Daniel says networking ports. So networking ports. What ports do you need to know? When it comes to your exams, whether you're taking A+, Net+, or Security+, you should know common or mostly used protocols. Things like HTTP, HTTPS, which is going to be SSL port 443. You should know things like SMTP, IMAP, POP3 is going to be email ports, FTP, SSH. These are common ports that I think all technicians should be familiar with. So that way when you move up the ladder and you're studying security or you're doing a pen test and you scan someone's network and you see they have port 80 open, you're like, oh, okay, so now I know this guy's running on he's running a web server, insecure web server. But if he has port 443, then you're like, okay, he's probably running a secure web server with some kind of certificate and encryption going on there. So yes, you should know those types of ports. All right. Larry asks me, okay, I do have a Richard Juan. Hello, guys. Larry asks me recommendations for practice, the PBQs for the Security Plus 601 exam. So if you are studying the 601 exam, if you watch the videos I did, you saw me talk about that. When I took the test, I remember the simulators were pretty straightforward. There were a couple of drag and drops where you had to drag different kinds of security concepts to a particular thing. So like this control was a physical security control. This was a logical control. So you should know those types of things. You have to know how to do basic configurations. I remember I remember some people telling me that there are simulators where you have to configure like SSH. The best thing you can do when it comes to the simulations on those exams is to do as much as the hands-on training as you could. If you watch my course, you do the videos, you'll notice that I do a lot of these hands-on with Kali Linux, or you can use almost any version of Linux now, and you can actually practice it that way. I think that would be your best bet for that. Anything extra? Morris says you're doing the 601 course and set up your lab. Is there anything outside of the course you recommend for hands-on? For passing your exam, no. I think the lab in there is like overkill for it. I think that's a lot. I don't think you need much more than that, right? I think you just have a lot of things going on in there. Brenda. All right. Does anybody have any other? All right. Juan says the Sims and Security Plus are generally easy. Yes, I do agree. They're not difficult. I don't think, a lot of students, a lot of people taking these certification exams have a problem with the simulators, or they fear the simulators. But when they actually get to the exam, they realize that, the simulators are not that hard. I don't think the simulators are going to be that difficult. All right. Daniel, are there any hands-on programs or labs you would recommend? Daniel, you got it for which one of these certs? Which one of these certs are you looking at that you're thinking of hands-on? I recommend to do as much hands-on lab for all your certs. I like it when somebody gets a certification but can actually do something. So, for example, and if you're doing A+, you should probably go on eBay, buy yourself a $50 computer, take it apart, put it back together. If you've never done hardware before, that is. Go download Windows, right? You could get Windows 10. You can get a trial version. You can get the enterprise version, the trial version. You can download an ISO and install it on VirtualBox. You should be doing hands-on labs for A+, for Net+, for Security+. Net+ doesn't have a lot, but you can still use Packet Tracer to configure routers and switches. For Security+, you see me did a whole lot with Kali Linux. So I think if you do a lot of labs, you're going to build up your own skill set. Plus, when you're studying for a certification and you're doing these labs, it builds up your own confidence. All right, it'll build up your own confidence in taking the exam. Because if you're not doing these labs, then all you're doing is just memorizing it. Then you're gonna go into the exam. You know what? I'm not feeling too well, or I don't know this topic well. But if you actually go and you set up something, like for example, we know that don't use Telnet, use SSH. But if you go and you configure SSH and you actually use it, you'll never forget it. So it'll help you with the memorization. So for Daniel, that question, do as much labs as you could. That's what I recommend. All right, very good, guys. Does anybody have any other question? Any other questions? Okay, you guys have ran out of questions there. And so I have a set of questions that I'm going to get answered for you. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this, a bunch of folks have emailed me. A bunch of folks have sent me questions throughout different forms. And I said, that's why I did this. So I said, you know what? Let me just do one thing. I'm going to answer everybody's questions. So hopefully, I did tell them to join the stream today to get their questions. And I'm going to give them an in-depth explanation instead of just typing out the answer. All right, got some other questions here. You guys are on a roll here. All right, let's take a look. About how long does it take to study for Security Plus? You know what, Jenny? I think somebody has asked me another question. Oh no, okay, Jenny, you did ask me. Okay, somebody else had asked me this. You know what? Let me hold on to that. I'm going to come to that. What if I forgo A+ and Net+ and go straight to Security Plus? No, do not do that. Do not forgo A+ and Net+ and then go to Security Plus. Please, I am begging you not to do that. You will be lost. I have taught these classes enough time that I've seen people attempt to take Security Plus with no background and they're lost. This is a problem that not just me, but other teachers have seen. So I tell people, do your A+ at least, and then if you want, go to Security Plus, but I don't recommend it. I think you should do A+, Net+, and then Security Plus. Always remember this, and remember my words from tonight. You cannot secure what you don't understand. In the Security Plus class, or going through the Security Plus exam objectives, and this is going to be, doesn't matter whether you take my class or any class or you read any study guide for it, they're going to assume you have a certain set of knowledge. Like you're going to know what an IP address is. You're going to know different classes of IP. You're going to know what NAT is. You're going to know what the TCP handshake is. So if you just pick up a Security Plus study guide, any good sounding study guide on Amazon, and you start reading it, you're going to be lost. You want to start from A plus, then do Net plus, then do Security Plus. Keep it for last. Remember, I'm a pen tester. Did 12 years of it. Security is never your starting point. It's the end point. Security comes after you have learned everything, right? So you should learn server administration. You should learn some networking. Then you can do security stuff. You can't secure a router if you don't even know what the router does, right? You can't secure a server if you don't know what Active Directory does or even how it functions. So definitely do not do that. I do not suggest that. Yes, so go for the trifecta there. All right. Okay, so somebody here asked me again, let me get back to this, about how long does it take to study for Security Plus? Well, that's a good question. You see, that really depends on your background. So if your background is in IT, you've been doing this quite a long time. I've seen some people pass Security Plus in a week or two because they've been at a help desk for quite a while. They've heard of these types of things and they just go and take the exam. Then I've had students that just finish their A plus, finish their Network Plus, and then they go and they study Security Plus. And then it takes them maybe a month and a half. I don't think it should take very long to study for Security Plus. I think Security Plus should be shorter than A plus. I think A plus has more content, so it takes longer to study. Even though I think Security Plus is more fun to study, but that's where all the fun parts are. But Security Plus does have some challenging concepts. The whole concept of cryptography is a very challenging concept to many students. I try to make it as easy as possible in the class, but it's still a challenging concept. Not just for Security Plus, but even for my bigger CISSP certification. So I think when it comes to Security Plus, if you have no experience and you had your A plus and your Net plus, you're probably looking at 1 month, 1.5 months. I can't imagine 2 months. It's kind of long. If you have experience, maybe you could do it in a week or two. Daniel, are any Mac questions on A plus? Yes. They are. You need to know Mac utility. Like you need to know Time Machine is the utility to do backup. So you don't need to have a Mac. I don't use a Mac, but I did have a somewhat of a virtualization Mac going on there when I did go through that to review some of the utilities in it. Somebody says here, I did the A plus course, but didn't take the exam. Also took Net plus and passed the exam. Studying for Security Plus, is that okay? Beto asked me that question. Beto, I would suggest go back and finish A plus. So Beto, I'm not sure if you're working right now, but you want to have the certification. Now, here's why. You see, when you go and you apply for a job and you go out, you send your resume to something like Monster or Indeed, a lot of these help desk jobs will actually go out and put on their job criteria when they're searching for candidates, A plus. And even though you have the knowledge, right, you may be smarter than or have more knowledge on what an A plus technician has, but because you don't have A plus on your resume, they're like, well, I never saw your resume. So they never even see what you have. So I would tell you, you know what you should do, go and finish your A plus. If you already took Network Plus and you passed it, you know what, then studying for A plus shouldn't be too difficult because you already got the whole networking section down, which is a pretty large portion, I think, of the Core 2 exam. So just go and knock it out. Remember, A plus, the A plus shouldn't be too difficult for you. All right, Larry says, what are your thoughts about obtaining these certs as pertaining to doing MSP work, managed service provider? A lot of the MSPs that are out there, the managed service providers that we have out there, use these certs extensively. If you're looking to work in an MSP, you should get these certs. Why? Because it helps to validate your knowledge. It helps to show that, you know what, I know at least how to fix any type of hardware issues that these MSPs may be working with. So these MSPs may have maybe 200 clients that they're managing. And if there's hardware in any of those clients, you can at least fix that. You can reinstall Windows. You know basic networking concepts. You can reconfigure networking settings on a computer. You at least understand basic security concepts to how to keep a computer secure, especially in today's world. So definitely, I think you're on the right path there. You know, A+, Net+, Security Plus, like the foundations of many other certs that we have here today. All right, Brenda says, what certification of the three would have becoming a data analyst? This seems to be popular. Brenda, you're all over the place. Brenda, you got to stick to one. So data analyst is a whole nother field. Data analyst, IT is a very, very large thing. IT has multiple sections. There is software programming, there's data analysts, right? There's security, there's networking, there's server administration, and then all this breaks into cloud sections and whatnot. So data analyst is a job where you will run different types of analytical tools across data to let the organization know how well, for example, their sales are doing. So you can analyze sales information and tell what product is doing well. Data analysts would run on the accounting data and see what they're spending their most money on. They know how to combine data and data mining. Now, yes, this may be popular, but it sways from what you're doing now, right? So if you're here, you probably did your A+, maybe you're not plus, something like that. So it sways from what you're doing now. And you got to ask yourself, is that what I want to do? You know, one of the things I tell students to do is you can't say to yourself, what is it that I want to do? Then just go and do it. Don't study a little here and then study a little bit there. Instead, don't go because, oh, that's popular. If you're very good at something and it leads to a job search, you'll get a job at it. But you got to like what you're doing. I think that's important. All right. I'm about to take my A+ soon, but was wondering your thoughts on it because there are a lot of people who's trying to do that. Yes, do your A+. Everybody does A+ at the beginning. I did A+ 100 years ago. All my instructors, all my friends, all my IT folks, we all did the A+ certification as our first one. So definitely that is the way to go. Would you recommend getting Microsoft certified? Nope. Do your A+ first. Microsoft certifications will assume you know basic concepts such as how to install Windows, right? They're going to assume you know how to assign an IP address. So I've taken many Microsoft certifications. I'm certified in every MCSE from Windows NT to Server 2016. And I haven't taken under the 19 certs. I have never seen a Microsoft cert ask me how to set an IP address. It was something I had to know before I get in there. So I would say if you want to do Microsoft certifications, and I know they just changed the whole schema thing of Microsoft Cert last month. If you want to do Microsoft certifications, at least do A+, Net+, then do your Microsoft certifications. I think you'll be okay then. If you want to go down that path of working in Microsoft. So right now, Microsoft Certs is a lot of it is going to be is about the Azure cloud. So if you're going to be studying that and working in the cloud and on actual servers, then do your A+, your Net+ first. Okay, what skills should someone should have for a help desk position? That's a good question. What skills should someone have for a help desk position? He says Active Directory, Office 365. Yes. You do not need to know how to install Active Directory, but you should, from a help desk perspective, you should know how to join a computer to a domain. You know, that you should be able to do. You should know maybe how to create an account in a domain. So these were things that we showed you in A+, right? So there's how to join a computer to a domain is one of the A+ concepts you should be familiar with. When it comes to Office 365, users may call you up, but I don't think you have to be an expert at Word or Excel. But I think A+ does go through the concepts of how to add a mail account to something like Outlook. That's what you should be familiar with. This guy says boring for the data analyst. Yeah, I'm with you. I can't do data analyst. All right, somebody says, thanks for the answer. I'm taking your Security Plus class, but also take your A Plus now too, because I'm not working in it. Yes, you please remember, do your A Plus. Hold on. Forgot to turn the phone off. Do your A Plus, then you'll be more ready for Security Plus. All right, Jesse says, for someone new to IT, would you recommend learning PowerShell early? How useful is it to master in the real world of careers? Good question. PowerShell, I use it quite a lot. But it is more of a server administration tool than it is for anything on a workstation. I can't remember using PowerShell for anything useful on Windows 10. I know you could do a lot of things on Windows 10 with it, but I can't see anything I'm doing in Windows 10 of the administration portions of it. PowerShell is used a lot to customize a lot of the services, to install a lot of the services, and like uninstall them and troubleshoot a lot of services on the Windows server. Not so much so on Windows 10. So if you are new to IT, work yourself up the ladder there, Jesse. Get yourself the A+, the Net+, and then if you like PowerShell, you want to use it, that means you're working in Windows Server administration, then you can look into Microsoft certifications if that's the game you're looking to do. Right? That's always, my Microsoft certs always has a good industry. Microsoft controls a big portion of the server market and a decently large portion of the cloud market now also. All right, guys. Very good. All right, does anybody have any other questions? If not, I got a couple of questions here that I will go through. And because I get a lot of people email me a lot of questions. What certification would you recommend after A+? Your Network Plus, 100%. Do your Network Plus. After that, you can do Security Plus if you like. Then you may want, some people do CCNA, some people do AWS, some people do Microsoft certifications. But I think when you guys have finished your A+, your Network Plus, you should really get a job and then determine where you want to go in this industry. Larry says, how important are these certifications in organizations that are outsourcing IT to cloud service providers? Basic certifications, like you mentioned, A+, Net+, Security Plus. See, this is a good question. And this is a broader topic. What happens now in IT that they are pushing away from what's called on-prem, so our on-premises. So we are moving all of our servers. We're moving a lot of, even our desktops, if you have cloud virtual desktops, into the cloud settings. How important are these certifications? And the answer is they're still very important. Remember something. When you push all of your stuff to AWS, when you push your desktops and your servers and your routers and you're hosting all the things through Amazon, what starts to happen is, Amazon is not going to do the setups most of the time for you. Amazon, if you go in there and you do Amazon EC2, which is just a blank server, you still need somebody to set that server up. Virtual desktops provided by Amazon, if there's a problem with your own application or something that you install on those virtual desktops, they're not going to help you with that because that's not theirs. If they push websites into Elastic Beanstalk, which is their platform as a service infrastructure where they give you like full Linux servers that you can run websites on, they're not going to set those up. All they do is they give you the platform. So what the cloud is doing is the cloud is beginning to replace our hardware. But organizations still needs people to pick up the phone and help users in particular fix things. Maybe the virtual desktop is not working well. The organization still needs to have tech supports to troubleshoot those virtual desktops that are stored in AWS. The organization still needs server techs to set up, configure, and manage the servers in the Amazon cloud. So, yes, the certifications will be around. Don't think There's a lot of myth about people saying, oh, because Amazon is here and Azure is here, all the jobs in IT is dead. That's not true. There's more jobs in IT now than there's probably ever were before. Do some research on that. Don't take my word for it. Has the aspect of them changed? Has the day-to-day work that we do change? Sure. Yeah, maybe 10 years ago we were doing a lot more hardware installation and fixing desktops. Nowadays we just do less of that, but we spend more time fixing the software itself. Users, especially in the world of remote access now, people still need to know how to configure a VPN or something like that. All right, so yes, those things are still pretty valid. Somebody says, can I do both exams, A+ exams on the same day? Beto, I don't know what the rush is, but I don't recommend that. Put your efforts into studying one exam. These exams are expensive, Beto. Really, really expensive. I'm not a rich person in any means whatsoever. And, $200 a pop for an exam is pretty expensive. So you know what you want to do? Don't rush it. Concentrate your efforts. Take one exam at a time. Take a little study break, in which case you might wait a day or two. Then maybe study some more and then take core 2. Don't take both A+ exam on the same day. I haven't seen much people do that, but I have seen some folks done that. All right, Daniel asked me a pretty good question. How do you stay motivated when struggling with a topic? It depends on the topic and it depends what you want out of it. So one of the things that people do is one of the things that happens in IT is we tend to get frustrated very fast. And because things don't work, things break. You got to try this. You got to try that. I see that it is very, very, sometimes it's very long to fix. It takes very long to fix a particular problem. So I would say, here's what you got to do. To stay motivated, you got to see the end of the tunnel. You got to envision what the end of this tunnel looks like. What I do when I want to stay motivated for taking a certification exam is I always imagine or see myself with that exam. So I can envision myself with that better job. I envision myself making more money. I envision myself having a better life with these certifications, because with the certification comes a better job, comes the more money. I see the end. And I'm just looking at this as, you know what, this is just a hump. This is just a hurdle I got to get through. So you will struggle with topics. Believe you me, I have struggled with so many topics. There were times when I was doing topics 1 or 2 days to figure out something. Labs doesn't work. Even, sometimes when I was recording the Security Plus class, I'm not going to tell you guys which one, but there was quite a few of those things that just didn't work the way I wanted it to. In the configuration, I'll tell you guys one of them, in the configuration of the Sonic Wall. When I was showing you guys how to set up VPN, the Sonic Wall kept crashing every time I went to the VPN tab. That took like 4 to 5 hours to figure out it's the firmware, and I had to update the firmware on the damn thing, and then it worked. Sometimes you know what to do. See the end of the tunnel. Stay motivated. Don't demotivate yourself. You have to envision or see that vision of where you're going to be at a better point in your life. There's a reason why you're doing this, right? So just see that and stay motivated and go out there and meet it. Somebody says, is Linux useful for jobs? Linux is very useful, especially for server administration. I recommend for all of you guys to go out and learn Linux. You don't have to be a Linux admin, and I'm not saying now. In A+, they do cover a bunch of Linux commands. You guys should know how to install Linux. You're right, in the videos and stuff like that, we went through, or in any course, right? It doesn't have to be my course. Any course that you're taking, any study guide you're reading, we went over Linux commands with you. I showed you guys the Linux file system. Now again, any course will do this. you should know basic Linux commands. Why? Because a lot of apps are running on Linux. The Linux server platform itself powers up many of your apps. Your iPhone, your Android, your Mac are all based on it. So by knowing Linux commands, knowing how to troubleshoot them will just make you much more marketable in today's world. As many organization runs something on Linux, some kind of web server or something like that they could be run on Linux. So yes, I do recommend to you to learn it. I don't think you need to be a master at it, but you do need to know it very well. All right, Dolphin asked me another question here. What do I need to know to get into threat intelligence? Threat intelligence. So threat intelligence is really about knowing threats that can affect your organization. Being even the ability to be able to predict the threats so you can secure your networks ahead of time would give you the ability to do this. This is a much higher up the scale. At a minimum, you need to know good networking and good server administration. You need to be well versed in a variety of different firewalls like Palo Alto firewalls, NGen or Sonic walls and ASAs and whatnot. Next gen firewalls, I should say. You need to have good security foundational concepts. You need to understand how are holes set up in your organization. Why? Because the firewall is misconfigured. You have port 21 open. So that's a big. It's not something you're going to learn overnight, right? It's something that's going to take a while for you to get into. All right, somebody says here, what is a good entry-level position for cybersecurity? Cybersecurity technicians or security technicians in IT are mostly lower positions in the ladder of security that just does basic security administration functions. This is going to be things like disabling a user account, setting security permissions on files and folders. This is after the administrator or senior management has determined what is it they want, and then the lower entry-level positions will do that. So cybersecurity technicians, not so much so engineers that designs the security. You see, when somebody says cybersecurity engineer, they're designing security solutions. A technician will help troubleshoot and fix those solutions when they're broken. So you should look into something like cybersecurity technician. What you want to do is make sure you have a good solid foundation, your A+, your Net+. Make sure you did, do your Security Plus. All right, Lawrence asks me a very good question. Lawrence says, what is the role now for network administrators in 2021 versus 20 years ago? It's a good question. How has it changed? Lawrence, I remember being a network administrator 20 years ago. MCSE, Server 2000. So the biggest change that has happened in the world of networking, network administrators, is of course cloud. The massive nowadays the massive move of on-prem to cloud. So network administrators, you go back to, I said MCSM and CCNA. You go back to the year 2000. You have routers and switches and configurations within your environment yourself. The problem we're having now in 2021 is you have some of your equipment on-prem, you have some of your equipment in the cloud. You as the network engineer needs to make sure that the on-prem stuff is communicating with the cloud stuff. I think network administrators are more important now than ever before. Why? Because of the whole cloud things. Because if the network goes down internally, then no one can connect to the cloud to access the resources that the company has there. Not to mention, if people don't have internet on their workstation, they can't work. So I think, what is the role now for network administrators? It changed quite a lot because the technology has changed, but I think they're more important now than ever before. Look at what happened with Cisco. Cisco has so many certifications now and so many different branches of certifications now, more than ever before. You go back 20 years ago, they didn't have this many certifications. So this is becoming, and then of course the whole security aspect of networking. So, that's a big thing there. So you think about all this, Network administrators is a big topic nowadays. Daniel asked me a very good question here. Daniel says, how do you know when you're ready to take the exam? You know, that's his first question. That's a good question. Let me tell you guys something. I have taken over 100 certification exams. That is not a joke. Probably even 110. But again, don't make that thing sound like a lot. I've been doing this for 20 years. If I took 5 a year, it's been 100. All right, don't make that, it's not I don't consider it a lot, but now you think about it, it sounds like a lot. I don't think I was ever ready for any of them at any point. I don't think I've ever left my house to go take an exam or take an online exam knowing to myself I am 100% ready or I'm really ready. I think a lot of people feel, and this happens to a lot of students, they don't actually schedule the exam, they don't take the exam because they feel like they're not ready. Well, let me tell you guys something. You will never feel like you're ready to take a test. I study very well. I consider myself a very good studier. I'm very dedicated when I'm studying, but I've never felt ready to take any. I've never said, I'm going to ace that test with 100%. I've never said that. 99% of the time, I'll be like, yeah, I'm probably not going to pass, but you got to go and take it. If you follow whatever, whoever you're studying from, they got a study plan. You go through the study guide. You go through your course information. You do all your practice exams. That's the most you can do. Review your exam objectives. Know the topics. Okay, I know it. Go and take the tests. That's just all you can do. When you don't need to wait till you think you're ready. You just have to go and take it. It's very easy to overthink the questions. Yes, if you go in. So one of the problems I see with many people that have taken certification exams is they like adding information to the question. People read a question, then they start to make up crazy scenarios in their heads. And what they do is they all of a sudden get the wrong answer because they're not looking at the question and answering the question according to what the question is asking. So I think that is a problem. And that happens to me sometimes also. Sometimes you just overthink the thing. You start adding more information. One of the things I always tell people to do is when you're reading a question, don't do that. Don't add information. Don't make up scenarios in your head. Stay with what's on the paper. Stay with what's on the screen in front of you, and you're probably more likely to get them right. Bill Rodriguez asks me, what Linux cert is better? Which Linux cert is better, Red Hat or Linux Plus? Red Hat is just the Red Hat. Red Hat certifications, and Linux Plus is the broad one. I would say do Linux Plus first. If you want and you like working on Linux servers, you're going to be a Linux admin, then go to Red Hat certification. Do Linux Plus first. That is the entry level. Somebody said it. Linux Plus is an entry level certification. All right. So I think Linux Plus is a good certification to get, by the way. I think so. All right, Daniel says some flavors of Linux are easier to learn than others. However, like in IT, you're never going to be an expert. Yeah. I use Linux for many, many years. At one point, it was my desktop for a few years. On my laptop that I would walk around with. It was on my laptop for quite a few years. I consider myself a good Linux person, like really good at Linux. But am I an expert at it? I wouldn't call myself an expert. I think I'm very good at it. So much to learn. So much to learn. All right, Jesse asks, after taking the exam, do you know what questions you got wrong? So you can study your mistakes and try again. The answer is no. Unfortunately, they will not tell you what questions you got wrong. But they will tell you what part of the exam objectives that you didn't do well on. So let's say you got some commands wrong. They'll tell you that. Maybe you got some questions on the OSI model wrong. They'll tell you that. So, but they're not going to give you the exact question. But they're going to give you the topic and the domain that you got it wrong in. So that, I think, is pretty helpful. Okay. Jesse asks me, okay, do you feel it's better to take an exam in person or online? That's a really good question. That's actually a question I have in my question set tonight. Is it better to take an exam in person or online? 100% online. I don't like taking exams in person at a testing center. Now I'm going to tell you why. So believe me, I've taken a lot of exams. Here's the thing. When you go to a testing center to take an exam, you have to wake up, you have to travel to the testing center. That can be taking a train, taking a bus, or driving. Then when you get there, you have to check in. Then you have to wait. There might be a line of people there to check in. Now, forget this whole pandemic that we're living in right now. There's probably a line of people. You have to check in. You have to put your stuff in a locker. You have to then go sit at their desks, right? You have to show your IDs. You guys sit there. Most of the time, those rooms were in crazy, crazy cold. Now, I'm a pretty big guy, and I'm generally not cold. But you know what? Those rooms are really freezing, man. Sometimes I remember taking CCSP exam, which is a cloud security exam a few years ago, and my hands got really cold with the mouse. There was a point I was sitting on my hands because it was that cold in the room. Sometimes the seats are uncomfortable. I remember some testing centers, their monitors are too small. People are sneezing, people are coughing. Some people are just moving around the room. I don't know why anyone ever wants to go to a testing center. If I can do a test in my house, in my chair, on my computer, with my seat, with my temperature, with my light, that I don't have to travel to, why would you ever want to do an exam in person? Again, if the exam is offered in person. Remember, taking an exam online wasn't an option up until a year or so ago. So if you have the option of doing it online, I would recommend doing it online. Now, is there a point where you don't want to do it online? So if you don't have that quiet room, if you don't have that quiet space, maybe you live in a household where you have a lot of family members, right? You know what? Then it may be difficult. Then you have to go to a testing center. But unless there's a circumstance like that, I think, you know what? You want to make sure that you do it online. Highly recommend that. All right. Somebody says here, Linux need to be studied in accordance with A+, Net+, Security+. So here's the thing. If you're doing, you could do A+, Net+, and Linux+. You don't necessarily, Security Plus and Linux doesn't really go together. What you're going to learn in Security Plus, you can apply it to some in Linux Plus, sure, but not a lot. But what you learn in A+ and Net+ is definitely going to be used in Linux Plus. All right, so you don't necessarily need to do Security Plus to do Linux Plus. But if you want to go down that path, definitely A+, Net+ before you can do Linux Plus. All right, Danny says, my experience for the CompTIA exam is fine. It's 5-minute wait to get in and sit down. Danny says he likes them. All right, if you've bought your vouchers, what do you do next? You go to Pearson VUE and you schedule your exam. Go to VUE.com and schedule your exam. You can schedule it right online. You put in your voucher number and you are ready to go. All right. Somebody says here, please explain between infrastructure and cybersecurity after Security Plus. I'm not sure what that means. You want to go to infrastructure or you want to work in security? Is that what you're telling me? Nowadays, infrastructure people will study things like Azure, AWS, are infrastructure jobs. So if you're going to go any of the AWS certifications, is basically infrastructure. Learn Azure, you can set up Windows servers and whatnot. So I don't know. And then cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is going to be many different things in cybersecurity. After Security Plus, you can do CEH. Then you can do specialization in security, like learning how to configure a Palo Alto firewall or getting certified in that. So I'm not sure what that was. All right, very good. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, very good, guys. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the questions that I have. So these are questions that people had sent me that I'm going to be reviewing with you guys, and I'll put the questions up. I got a little PowerPoint presentation here that I'm going to be sharing here with you guys, and I'm going to put it up. We're going to read the question, then I'm just going to answer it. It's about 15 questions I selected because I got so many questions people sent me through LinkedIn, to my email, through the e-learning courses. So many questions. I just took 15 that people kept repeating over and over. And I broke them into 3 sets: A+, Net+, Security+, and then I have something called general questions. Some of them I think I answered already. So let's take a look here at some of the questions. So one question I got is, what order should I get my certifications in? I'm in A+ now. So this is something that I've already covered here. I said, if you're doing your certification, you're going to want to make sure that you do your A+, then you're going to do your Net+, then you can do Security+. Do not do, like I mentioned earlier, don't do Security+. You should, I would really recommend doing Net+ before doing Security+ on that. All right, another question that I got here is going to be, should I concentrate more on the labs or the terms to pass the 2 exams? Now, this is a good question. They're talking about A+ here. Should I concentrate more on the labs or the terms? This is something that I mentioned earlier. When you're studying for a certification, technically speaking, you could just pick up the book, any study guide that you want to study for A+. Mike Myers, he's an amazing instructor. He's got a great study guide. The All-in-One, I think, is a really good book. If you want to pick up something like the All-in-One study guide and just go through it and memorize it, can you pass A+? Sure. But you know what? Remember something. If you haven't done any labs and you haven't done any hands-on training, you are what people call paper techs. Paper techs are people with certifications that don't know how to do anything. I don't recommend being a paper tech at all. I want you guys to please do your labs. Do as much labs as you could for every certification you get. The more hands-on you have, the easier those concepts become. If you see it, you play with it, you'll see those concepts come alive, and then you'll never forget it. Here's an interesting thought. Sometimes you get a lab, or sometimes you're trying to do something that doesn't work and you spend days figuring it out. Trust me on this, you'll never forget that concept ever again. The more you struggle to fix something or to get a lab working or to get a technology working, you'll never forget that particular technology. All right. Another question that I have here is going to be, what hardware should I have to do the labs in A+? Is a Mac okay? This was a question that you guys have no idea how many people ask me this question. What hardware do I need to do labs? Now, I'm going to cover this for all of them, for A+, Net+, Security+. First of all, is a Mac okay? Yes, Mac is fine. There's nothing wrong with a Mac. I'm not sure. How many Mac users email me and ask me, if I have a Mac, can I join the class? Yes, there's nothing wrong with a Mac. I have a MacBook Pro. I use it. Not a MacBook Pro, MacBook Air that I walk around with sometimes. It's fine. In fact, it's sitting right there. Okay, so it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, why? Because what you're going to be doing to do all these labs, A+, Net+, Security+, is you're going to be installing virtualization. You're going to be installing VirtualBox is what I recommend. If you have a Windows 10 box, you can install Hyper-V. There's also VMware and things like that, but I really just recommend just use VirtualBox. And then you're going to be installing operating systems, because after you finish with A+, hardware, there's really no other need for hardware. All it is all software after this. Net+, you can use Packet Tracer to do a bunch of those labs. Security+, as you saw when I did the labs, if you took my class, you'll notice those are all software. It's all virtual machines I was running. Now, when it comes to the hardware, I recommend a multi-core processor. The more cores, the better. And I recommend the number one thing you're going to want to have is a ton of RAM. At least 16 gigs of RAM is what you should need, because you're going to have to power up many virtual machines. I also recommend a solid-state hard drive. If you have a laptop that came with an old-fashioned spinner hard drive, you should get an SSD. Solid state drives will drastically speed up so you can run multiple virtual machines. There'll be no slowdown. So if your laptop, if your desktop has a hard drive, good old-fashioned spinner hard drive, I recommend you would switch that out. You could get a solid state drive for $50 nowadays for 500 gigs. There's a huge night and day difference between the two. All right, so that question I've seen so many times, so many people have asked me that particular question. Let's take a look at the other question that I have here. So the other question I have here, where do I find the OSs to install? And all the common questions I get, that's quite often. Where you find the operating systems, you're going to find them on Microsoft's website. If you guys Google and we look for Windows Trial, there is enterprise version of Windows Trial that you can download. You don't need a full copy of Windows. Don't go purchase a copy of Windows. The trial is fine because you're installing it, you're learning from it. If it expires, install it again. No big deal. It just takes, if you have a solid state drive, it'll maybe take you 30 minutes to reinstall Windows. And the more times you do it, the better anyhow. All the Linux operating systems are absolutely free. So you can get Kali Linux is absolutely free. On Ubuntu, you saw me using A+, that's free also. So just go ahead and download that. A lot of people ask me about Windows. Some people say, do I need the Windows 7 OS? You see me use it a lot. And technically, no, you could have done most of the labs with Windows 10. Finding a copy of Windows 7 now is not going to be easy. But you know what? Windows 7 is the end of life. You should really just concentrate on Windows 10. I know they have some questions on your A+ about Windows 7, but finding that OS is going to be a little bit difficult there. Okay, the other question that I get is going to be, is it better to take the exam at home or online? This was a question that I answered earlier. Is it better to take the exam? I told you guys earlier, it is much better to take the exam online. I can't imagine. I can't imagine why you'd want to take the exam at a testing center. That question there should be at a testing center. All right, that one we already covered. Okay, somebody says, what additional practice exams do you recommend? This is a good question. And somebody said, this was a common question I got. What practice exams do you recommend? Do you guys know who Jason Dion is? Do you guys know who that guy is? He sells stuff on Udemy. Do you guys know who he is? Jason Dion. I'm not sure if you guys heard of Jason Dion. Jason Dion, I spoke to him personally, and he's a really nice guy. And I asked him, do I have permission to recommend your practice exams? And he's cool with it. So if you guys are looking for additional practice exams for A+, Net+, Security+, he has great practice exams on Udemy. It's really cheap. Check it out. I recommend him. He's a good guy. I know him personally. Well, I spoke to him once or twice, right? So maybe he's watching this right now. I don't know. But check him out on Udemy. He's check out his practice exams. I do recommend his practice exams. People ask me, am I going to write practice exams? I really don't have the time. I'm going to make a Network Plus class, but not now. I'm just so busy. I'm just teaching a lot of classes right now. So if you want more practice exams, check out Jason Dion. I recommend him. Okay. Another question I have here is this harder than, okay, so these are Network Plus questions now. Is this harder than A+? This I thought was a good question. A few people have asked me this before. Is Network Plus harder than A+? And I thought the answer to this particular question, I say, is yes. I'll tell you why. A+ to me is things that you can see, play with, and work with. Almost everything in A+. Hardware, of course, you see, you play with it, you touch it, you can see it. Configuring utilities in Windows and installing Windows, sure, you can see it, you can play with it, you can't touch it, right? It's software, but you can play around with it. Now, Network Plus has a whole bunch of concepts where you can't see it, you can't really do much about it, you just got to know it. For example, the TCP handshake. That's not something you can go and configure and change. but you got to know it to know how packets go around a network. You want to make sure that you want to understand it, but it's not something you can actually go and do. And for those reasons, because a lot of things in Network Plus are more conceptual based and less lab based, and then Network Plus introduces a bunch of concepts and topics that you just can't go out and set up. They may talk about DHCP server, but just going out and set up a DHCP server means you got to go set up a whole Windows server. So they introduce a lot of concept, and all the exam wants you to know is just conceptually know what it is, but to actually go and practice them is kind of difficult. So a lot of students are just left just knowing conceptual stuff, and that means a lot of stuff to memorize. So in my mind, I thought Net Plus was harder than A+. It just has more stuff to memorize versus A+. Yeah, you got a lot of stuff, but a lot of it you could have played around with. So in my opinion, I thought that was actually easy, harder. All right, so the next thing I have here, the next question we have is going to be, what kind of setup to do labs for Network Plus? Okay, this is another question. What kind of setup are we gonna have for labs for Network Plus? Virtual machines. All you need are basically 2 computers that can ping each other, so you can do a little bit of file sharing, configure an IP addressing. You're going to want to, I use Packet Tracer. You're going to want to do some Packet Tracer so you can run some router commands, know how to set up a little router, know how to actually apply an IP address to a router, know how to use a switch, which Packet Tracer does. So what kind of setup? Nothing more than just software. I don't think you need any type of hardware. Now, one other question I got was in this one, it says, should try to make a network cable at home. Should I try to make a network cable at home? The answer, I added this one in. Not a lot of people ask me this, but I got this one like twice. And the answer is yes. Here's why. I think, personally, all networking IT folks should know how to make a network cable for your personal and, at work. How many times have I needed to customize a network cable for my own house for when I'm at work, when I'm at setting up a network, configuring a router, making a little patch cable or something? You guys should do this. Now, is it expensive? No. You could buy a network. You could buy a little kit that comes with a crimper, that comes with to strip the cable off. You can get heads in there and a tester for about $30 on Amazon. And you can buy, I don't think you need to buy 1,000 feet, but you could buy spools of cable, like 100 feet, 200 feet of cable for a couple of bucks. So for like $50, you can get this entire thing to do. So yes, you should know how to make a network cable. I can't emphasize that enough. So I think that is something you guys should know how to do. Is Packet Tracer free? Yes, Packet Tracer is free. A lot of people ask me this. They see me use it. Packet Tracer is free. You can download it from Cisco. There's a video here on YouTube, I think on this channel, where I show you guys how to do that. Go take a look at it. Download Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is a free utility from Cisco that allows you to study for like your CCNA. It allows you to add routers and switches and even computers, and you can ping the computers across, and you can do basic configurations on routers and switches. They use this a lot in Cisco, but we also use it in Network Plus to do some simple configs to make concepts easy to learn. Okay, the other question here I have is Security Plus now. What hardware and software do I need to complete the Security Plus labs? This is something we covered earlier. Hardware and software, 16 gigs of RAM. You need to have, we mentioned, multi-core processors. Try to get a solid state hard drive. In the Security Plus, I used a large variety of operating systems. I used Windows 10. I had used Windows 7. I'd used Windows Server to do some of those labs. And then I'd use a Kali Linux was the OS I used mostly in that course. So if you're doing labs for it, at a minimum, you need Kali Linux and a Windows 10 box. You don't need the Windows Server box to do the Security Plus labs. Not much of them. All right, because a lot of them came installed with Active Directory, and if you're not familiar with how to set up Active Directory and set those things up, it becomes difficult to do. But when it comes to hardware, I went over that. When it comes to software, Kali Linux, Windows 10 virtual machines, I think you're good. That's all you need. All right, another question I have. This is a good one. Now, these are general questions. I have a few general questions that people had asked me. I failed a few times. What do you recommend? So this was a question that I got quite a lot from people that just signed up for my class or something, or taken a class with us. And they said, hey, Andrew, I failed this exam. I'm trying out your course. Hopefully it'll help me pass or something like this. Was quite a lot of responses I got. Listen, here in IT, I have never met an IT person that's been in this industry a while that haven't failed an exam yet. I have failed so many exams. I have lost count of the amount of fails I have done. Yes, I have a lot of certifications, but I have failed way too many to talk about here. Over 10 to 15 exams, I would think I failed. There's one of them I failed 4 times in a row before I passed it. If you fail a few times, so if you take an exam and you fail that exam, you study, you fail it, you study again really well, you fail it again. You need a different approach. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect the different results, right? This is something, you've heard a lot from people telling you how to lose weight. You can't keep eating cheesecake and think you're going to lose weight. If what you did not work, maybe you did this particular course and it didn't work for you. Or maybe you liked it and you think it worked, but then you keep failing. You need to try something else. Read a different book. Take a different class. Do different practice exams. So look, I'll tell you guys, if, I mentioned Jason Dion earlier. Some of you guys may say, well, okay, I see you have a course. Is Jason Dion course? He has a course too. Which one is better? I think we're both great courses. But if you take my course and you failed Security Plus exam twice, I would tell you my personal self, please take his course. What I'm doing is not working for you. If you take his course and you fail multiple times, then please take my course or anybody else's. I can't mention any other names because I don't have permission to mention anybody's names, but I do know him. So you got to try a different approach. I believe that we should study from multiple people. When I personally study certification exams, I always come from 2 sources. So I can get a training course from Bob and I can get a study guide from Mary. You want to hit it at multiple angles. Everybody has a different way of explaining things. A lot of people have told me, hey, I never understood IP addressing and subnet until I watched your course. That's a comment that I have seen quite a lot. That, I didn't understand it till I took your course, or some people have tried other people's course and understood it very well. Hit it at multiple angles. Anytime you fail an exam, rethink your strategy. Don't study the same thing again. If you study it well and you go back and study it, just wasting your time. All right. Another exam here. Another question. What cert should we do after A+, Net+, and Security Plus? So I think that's a good question. A lot of people ask me this, Andrew, I'm going to finish off Security Plus. What should I do next? It depends what you want to do with your certification, right? It depends what is it that you're looking to do in your career. Do you want to stay in security? Do you want to go to infrastructure and learn cloud services, such as an AWS cert or an Azure cert? That depends on you yourself. Some people like working in security. Some people prefer not. Now, if you're going after security, I have break-in security certifications into what I call red and blue certs. Red and blue certs. So if you work in an organization, there's red teams and blue teams. Red teams hacks your network, ethical hacking. Blue teams, what they do is they secure the network. If you're going to go into cybersecurity, which I think a lot of people want to do now, if you're doing cybersecurity, what you need to do is you need to choose your path. Am I going to go red? Am I going to go blue? Because there are certs and there are careers in both. So let me explain. So let me explain what I mean. If you decide that you want to you want to work on the blue team, I want to be a person that defends my network, you would go and study specific technology that allows you to defend your network. You get certifications in things like ASA and Palo Alto firewalls and F5s and Barracudas and whatnot. You learn different ways of doing log analysis and analyzing threat analysis. You look at different security practices and how to train your users. You look at how to fix up and set up endpoint security for your network. This is network defense. This is a blue team certifications. You can spend a whole career doing this. Then there's some of us that wants to be quote unquote ethical hackers. So these are red certs. These are certifications you take to break people's network. And there's a whole path for this. After Security Plus, a lot of people may do CEH. Then some people start on this whole path of the OSCP from Offset. So that's the premier of pen testing certifications. Very difficult to get. Offset themselves, Offensive Security, has their own path of certifications that you can go through. And then there's so much to learn in that industry alone. That's a career by itself. So choose your path of what works for you. So this was another question. This was a question that I got so many times, and I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier. How do we go about getting your first IT job? So this was a question that I've seen so much throughout emails, LinkedIn requests. Oh my God, it's insane how many times I've seen this question. And people say to me, you know, what do I do to get that first job? You know, again, that first job is going to be the most difficult job you'll ever get because it's your first time. So here are some of my recommendations. Number one, can you find an internship that you can attend? Many organizations will or like to hire interns. Now, you're going to be paid? Probably not. But you know what? You're going to get to put that experience on your resume. One of the things that I thought was pretty interesting was when we put up a job posting here at TIA, and I've had people apply, which I thought was pretty clever. And we have hired, some people have applied, and they said, I know I don't qualify for the job, but are you taking any intern? And that I thought was pretty clever. Yeah, many people will do that. Many organizations will hire you as an intern because you know what? Who doesn't want the actual free labor? Yeah, you got to listen. I worked as an intern for 1 year at a school for free. 1 year, and I'm talking many hours every day because I really enjoyed doing it before I got a paying job in this thing. So I think internships are good. Another problem I see that people are not doing well is that they're not actually having good resumes. I mean, I've seen some resumes when I put out a posting to get a technician for one of our locations here. Some of the resumes I see are just horrific. Oh my God. I want to know, do they actually want a job or not? They'll put the certification all the way to the bottom of the resume that they have. They don't list any of the skills they have. Their resume will just be like a couple of lines. It'll be like their name. Here's my address. Here's my contact information. So right now I work in this job, which is not related to technology. This is what I do with the job. Oh, and I have A+ and I have Net+, and they're done. It'll be like a half a page or maybe 1 page with just very little info, a lot of space. I think what I want to see on there, if I was hiring, is maybe talk a little about the skills you have. Yeah, you don't have the job, but you have the skills. Maybe you could put, you know what, skills section I mentioned earlier. Put, you know how to do these things. You know how to install Windows. You know how to troubleshoot it. You know how to set up simple networks, configure basic settings on routers and switches. I think that would help a lot. And then apply. Even if you don't qualify for an entry-level job, try submitting your resume for jobs you don't qualify for. Put if I don't qualify, you put in the job letter. If I don't qualify, do you have any internships position available? I'm looking for that too. And I think I've had some people do that before, and that really worked well. So you guys can try that. All right. That is all the questions that I have that I wanted to review with you guys today. All right. Hopefully I answered everybody's question tonight. All right, so we got. All right, let me go through the question feed. I just didn't get a chance to look at it yet. Okay, not much questions here. You guys got this. Somebody asked me what exam did I fail? Well, I mentioned earlier I did fail A plus, right? And then I failed some ITIL exams. I did fail a bunch of those things. So yes, 62 certifications, guys. We all failed at some point. I don't think, like I said, I haven't met anyone that hasn't failed an exam before. That I haven't done. I haven't met anyone that haven't failed an exam, especially in IT. Almost every IT person I know has failed exams and multiple exams. Okay, guys. Does anybody have any other questions? Hopefully you guys had some. Hopefully I got everybody's questions answered correctly tonight. Did you guys have fun tonight, guys? Did you guys learn a lot of things? Okay. All right, very good, guys. Well, you know what? I covered everything I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully, you guys learned a lot from this discussion tonight. You know what? Keep your questions going. You know what you guys can do for me? We're going to answer everybody's question. You know what? You guys didn't like my video. Come on, we spent 1.5 hours. Can you guys give me some likes here? And you know what? Can you guys, if you guys know other people studying for their certification exams, tell them to join us. You know what? We'll do this again in 2 weeks if you guys have more questions. And, maybe we can meet up again in 2 weeks or so. I'll schedule another one. Keep an eye on the page. We'll schedule another one. Hopefully we can get more of your questions answered. Hopefully more people can join us and get them some information. Keep them motivated. We'll need to be doing more of these sessions like this. I'm going to be doing a session on how to study for your certification exam in 2 weeks. A lot of people have asked me, and I couldn't do it here because it takes like a good 45-minute discussion. What is the best approach? How do I set up myself to study for a certification exam? What is the best approach for that? If you guys are interested in that, let me know. All right. We'll do some more of this. The more we can help you guys pass your exams, the better. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful. Also, we'll be putting some out. Also, we'll put out some videos coming up soon on different topics for your A+, your Net+. Keep an eye for those also. Okay, guys. Thank you guys for attending. You guys have a good evening or week or day. I'm not sure where you guys are right now. Or maybe it's early morning for you. All right, thank you guys. You guys have a good night, guys, or morning. Take it easy. Hopefully, the reminders. You know what? Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you're gonna get reminders. All right. Yes, how to study for the exams. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna make sure I cover that. All right, you guys have a good night, guys, and I will see you guys maybe in a couple of weeks. You guys take it easy. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get some updates and notifications when we're going to be doing another one. You guys have a good night, guys.